Hype around technologies is killing software development. So you come across a usual blog which goes something like, huge company, insert name here, switches to NoSQL or switches to insert fat technology here and improves performance by X or Y%. Now, you might ask, as a wannabe software developer at these companies, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. You take your small application, you change its stack, you mutate it quite a bit, taking inspiration from all of these amazing software companies, from all of these big businesses, without any regard for why they actually switched stacks, what sort of parameters they base their decisions on. And once you make the move, you push it to production. It's extremely slow, it's bad, it's underperforming, it's just completely bloated, and you are wondering, what did I do wrong? Maybe I'm just bad as a software developer. Well, the answer is no. What actually happens, right, is that you base your decision on something called hype-driven development. It's a term I just made up, and it's the complete opposite of what domain-driven development stands for. So, domain-driven development is our good old days where we'll take a look at the problem, we'll try to approach it, we'll try to understand and gain domain knowledge first, and then we'll start to focus on the solution, take a look at what sort of tech stack would be the best, research. Nah, that's too cool for these days. What you do is you take the latest fat technology, slap it on, and you market the hell out of it. Anyways, jokes aside, actually, there was this command line utility I was using recently. It's called Bullshit, by the way. It's available on the Arch user repository. And what it does is that it creates and spews out certain buzzword spaghetti. And how awfully similar it sounds to some actual things engineers say is extraordinary. Let me just read out a couple of them, which I have written right here. Module-oriented ORM model factory. Web scale high performance horizontally scalable database. Now these, both of them actually sound a bit like advertisement for MongoDB. Now, what happens is a lot of decisions which people are making these days on what sort of tech stack to use, they're based a lot on hype and a lot of these blogs. And that is fundamentally creating a problem. Now, this is rather prevalent in the younger crowd in software development. Some of the veterans are well aware of the problems which hype can cause and how bad it is, and how this can lead to perfectly working and perfectly functional things getting replaced by something which is so suboptimal that it ends up being a step down in every single discipline that you can think of. Before I dive further into it though, let me preface this by saying that no technology is fundamentally bad. When I call these technologies fad here, I'm not actually calling the technology itself a fad, but rather the whole phenomena surrounding it, where a lot of people were trying to migrate to it, a fad. Because if you think about it realistically, with each of the examples that I'm about to list out, that in a lot of these places they would have been better off by using another technology, and potentially the one which they were switching away from. The thing is, no technology is inherently bad or inherently good. It's how you use it. No tool is good or bad. If you take a nail and you're trying to punch it into a wall, it's not the nail's fault. You could have used a hammer, which would have been better suited. So you're using the wrong tool. It's your fault that you're being an idiot if things go into production and just suddenly spontaneously combust. A lot of what's happening recently in the software industry is that a lot of younger crowd gets into it, which is amazing. The amount of adoption that we've seen is extraordinary. And then they follow up on these articles, they want to see what's the latest and the greatest. They try to use that in their project, but in a lot of the cases, it's not the right technology. Now, this issue of hype-driven development manifests itself in various forms, and we'll take a look at a lot of them right now. The first way in which this had manifested itself that I want to list out and talk about is the whole DB wars between relational and non-relational databases. There were a lot of evangelists of NoSQL databases. They would be like, oh, these are the fastest, these are the greatest, they are amazing, they cure cancer, etc. But the issue with a lot of these NoSQL databases, which people don't understand, is that NoSQL databases achieve those insanely amazing benchmarks by compromising on one of the ACID guarantees, Now, ACID guarantees don't apply to NoSQL specifically, but I'm just trying to explain that. So, in ACID, the last guarantee is durability, which means that if a transaction was successful and the database said that it was successful, then that data has persisted. It means that even if the server crashes or it catches a fire or something and you're able to recover the disk, then the data would always be persisted there in the disk. Now, the problem with NoSQL databases or non-relational databases is that they compromise on this guarantee in order to achieve amazing and fast benchmarks. They queue up those transactions to be written in blocks. So the data, even when it has been marked as successfully committed, would still stay in memory for a bit before it's written. Now, relational databases go to a great length, actually. So there's something called OS cache, where to prevent I/O operations, since I/O is extremely expensive, they queue these and cache them instead of writing them and persisting them directly to the disk. Now, relational databases, they use fsync, which basically bypasses the whole OS cache step and directly persists data to disk, which is much more expensive in terms of I/O and computation power. But they go to these great lengths to make sure that the guarantee of durability is delivered. Now, MongoDB is basically available and eventually consistent, so a lot of the guarantees are compromised here. What these people don't seem to understand is that there are cases where people would much rather have the guarantees. Also, I have a challenge for you. This is just a fun little exercise. Go to GitHub, search MongoDB, and what you would find is that a lot of repositories where you find schemas for MongoDB tables, MongoDB schema, sorry, not tables. There are no tables in MongoDB. You'll find that those schemas and models which people had made, they have a lot of relations in between. And what is MongoDB exactly? It's a non-relational database. So these guys would have been better off using Postgres, and if you want to slap on a few additional fields, just use the JSON column which Postgres offers. Just use that. And you have that added flexibility of using a document style in a relational manner, like with Postgres. So why not just use that? But Postgres isn't hyped as much, is it? Another rather prominent way in which this issue had manifested itself was the whole crypto scene. So how we used to traditionally approach problems is that we'll actually first identify a problem and then we'll look for a solution, right? So people identify that, oh, it takes too much time to go to a physical store actually to buy things, so rather than that, just use the internet. Let's just order things while we're sitting at home. Since we have busy lives, the package would just come in. And we were all about identifying problem first and then finding solutions for them. But the whole crypto scene is you have a solution, you have a publicly available ledger, and then you start finding problems which are getting fixed by it. And some of the solutions which these guys propose are so absurd that if you think about them, they don't even make any sort of coherent sense whatsoever. So this whole hype train thing is just killing software development because people are just looking towards the latest fad rather than focusing on the fundamentals. Another way in which this issue had manifested itself is when GraphQL first came out. You could have, I swear, you could have gone to any single tech reporter and everyone was just like, REST APIs are dead. No one would use REST APIs whatsoever. This is the end of HTTP and whatnot. Did that happen? No. Because GraphQL and HTTP are meant for different things. Just take a look at why a technology is created. It's not that difficult. Similarly to gRPC. When that came out, people were like, all of these other protocols are dead. Come on, just think about it, why these things were created. A really good creator which I look up to in this regard, he focuses extremely well on things which actually matter. His name is Hussein Nasser. I'd recommend you check out all of his videos for backend and for communication frameworks and communication technologies. So coming back to what actually matters when writing software. Now, I've been in this industry for about 5 to 6 years now, and what I've seen is there are a few fundamentals that matter. Apart from that, everything else is just peripheral. Apart from that, everything else is just fad. And something which I'll say time and time again is you can fix bad code, you can't fix bad architecture. Now, architecture is so paramount to delivering something which is in line with what you actually want to. So, what you should do is focus on solid architecture, focus on clean architecture, focus on inversion of control, focus on all of these boring theories that you've heard everyone talk to you about for ages, and just use them. I'll go on a tangent now to something slightly related to like real life and trying to give a UN analogy. A lot of people romanticize the idea of extremely simple things. They've The reason they do that is that they've tried the simple things which actually work, and then they start diving into all these secret conspiracies the government doesn't want you to know about, this ancient Mayan technique that was forgotten. Well, those things are forgotten because they did not work. The things which actually work are never forgotten. Just think about it. What happens is that people have tried all the regular stuff, and the reason they failed was that they weren't consistent. Consistency would give you everything that you want in a certain field. And just be consistent with the core fundamentals, and you would eventually come out on top. Just take a look at weight loss. A lot of people fail, then they try all these stupid fad diets and all. But it's just simple. Eat less, exercise more. Just focus on the core premise of things, and you would succeed. It's similar, and all sorts of parallels can be drawn to it in all different domains. Just try to be more consistent and focus on the core things that actually matter. So that's the end of the rant for me. Thank you so much for watching. If some of my longer term viewers are watching, they'll realize this is sort of a different setup, and I kind of look different now as well. So thank you so much for the 2,000 subscribers, by the way. That was something rather unexpected. Uh, yeah, I just felt like I needed to make this video, and that would be the end of the rant for me. Goodbye and take care. Have an amazing day ahead. See ya.